What's going on, fellas? I have a little bit of a different video for you guys today. As I'm sure some of you have noticed, especially if you've interacted with me at all, I'm not particularly technologically adept, nor am I super in tune with YouTube lifting culture. Now that I'm trying to post regularly on the platform, I've started to kind of pay more attention to it, try to get a feel for kind of how things work on here, but I'm not super entrenched in it. I've watched a ton of educational content on YouTube over the years, but can't say I've really engaged much in the community and don't necessarily think I understand how things work all that well. But I'm starting to notice some trends, kind of figure out generally how the community operates to some degree. Probably worse than almost all of you watching. If you found a channel as small as mine, you're probably entrenched deeper into this than I am. But one thing I've noticed is the obsession with classifications of lifters, whether it be competitive or recreational, into categories, beginner, intermediate, advanced, elite, whatever it might be. And it seems to be a real obsession. It seems to be one of the most common topics that people ask about in fitness, in strength training especially, is how do we categorize ourselves as lifters. And it's something that I have stayed away from for the most part because I don't think it's a productive conversation most of the time. I think that it's just people trying to arbitrarily categorize themselves instead of just focusing on what they specifically need to do better to get better at that point in time. I just don't think it's a productive use of time because it's like there aren't concrete rules that say this is when you're an intermediate lifter. These are the concrete programming changes you need to make as an intermediate. That information isn't super helpful from a coaching perspective to arbitrarily categorize people. Each person is at a different point in their progression from weak to strong, and what they need is unique to them at a given time to some degree. There's a general progression there, but I think trying to block out beginner, intermediate, advanced, I've never found it to be a productive conversation, but people ask it a lot anyway. I've seen some takes on it. It seems that the prevailing opinion is that it comes down to rate of progression, right? Beginner is someone who can just slap more weight on the bar every single week and just do regular, traditional, straight, progressive overload, like linearly. And that's what categorizes as a beginner. And then when that fails to work anymore and you have to start introducing some periodization to see consistent gains, then you're intermediate. And then we finally get to the point where, okay, gains are coming really slow. This is when we become advanced, right? And that seems to be the prevailing theory. And I don't think that's phenomenal because there's varied qualities within our outside the gym variables and our in the gym variables that drastically impact where we're going to need to make those programming changes. If someone's just eating like a stud, right? They're eating 6 meals a day with good protein, good micronutrients, having a little bit of fruit with each one. They go to bed on time. They're gaining weight gradually at a solid rate. They lock in their form. They train hard as hell on their accessories. That person is going to be able to ride out like a 5x5 program to a pretty admirable level of strength. On the other side of the coin, if you have someone who's really just terrible about their dietary adherence, terrible about their training intensity, they don't hold themselves to high standards as far as technique, they're not getting nearly enough sleep, they might, as a male, plateau at a 155 bench. And so they're like, oh, okay, I can't add weight to the bar anymore on a week-to-week basis at 155. I just have bad genetics. I've become an intermediate lifter at 155. And I would not agree with that classification, right? I think when you're classifying yourself as a lifter, I think what we should be looking to is not rate of progression because that doesn't factor things in. I think it's the quality of your process. And the problem with this and why this isn't like a sexy answer is that it's hard to categorize yourself based on these non-finite criteria, right? It's like, it's not just a number. How much did my squat go up this week or this month or this year? And that I can use that kind of as a chart to tell me my rate of progression is X. That means I am a beginner, intermediate, advanced. This is much more subjective, but it's a rating of our process, right? So I think that's the best way to categorize a lifter is to say, hey, if you aren't getting in your meals on a regular basis, your training intensity isn't great and your technique isn't great and you're not sleeping great, I would consider you a beginner. Even if you're failing to progress, it means you just need to ramp up your processes a little bit more, right? And you probably will have to continue getting better. You'll have to get better with your diet. You have to get better with your sleep. You have to get better with your training. And eventually those habits will reflect that of an intermediate lifter, and your strength will reach that of an intermediate lifter. So it's really tough because most people struggle to be perfectly objective with themselves. So this system that I'm putting forward doesn't help those people very much, because they're like, yeah, I get plenty of sleep, but if you really they didn't have to self-report it, and you really just took a map of when they're going to bed. They're going to bed at 2 in the morning every night because they like looking at their phone. That is not the actions of an advanced lifter. They miss meals every single day. Missing 1 meal a day is a lot, right? But people are like, well, I ate 4 of the 5 meals in the diet that I wrote that I'm supposed to follow. That's pretty good. And I'm like, missing 1 meal a day is not that advanced. Maybe that's intermediate at that point because you're nailing 4 out of 5 every day. I don't think that's necessary to be an intermediate. I think that realistically probably puts you in the middle to upper region of an intermediate lifter, but it's an appraisal of process. And I think that if we try to be really objective with ourselves, we can kind of gain more from this model of categorizing ourselves than we can from just the progression type model. And that's to say, hey, I'm a beginner lifter in my habits and I'm plateaued. That means I probably need to start working towards the habits of an intermediate lifter to overcome this plateau. And more often than not, holding yourself accountable to the in the gym stuff, training hard, really pushing yourself, having the discipline to keep your form while pushing yourself, the food, the sleep, any other habits that you find helpful. Holding yourself to gradually higher and higher standards of those is what becoming a better lifter truly is. And the results and your strength follow that. They don't your strength doesn't precede your habits. You're not going to reach an intermediate strength or level before you reach intermediate habits. The habits are the front runner, right? So we need to address our habits and our strength will follow. And I think that's what I've observed looking at the better lifters than me that I've met over the years at different points in my career. If you look at pro strongmen, the most important thing about them is how rigid their daily routine of meals and recovery and training is, and that's what makes them elite lifters. And the strength is a byproduct of having built a day, every single day, around getting stronger. And that's what makes them like the top of the top in terms of strength in the world. And so I just kind of wanted to put this out there. I know this probably won't help some of you, maybe it will help some of you, but I really wanted to put my perspective out there because I was listening to some videos and I didn't necessarily always agree with that classification that everyone kind of was like nodding along and said that makes sense. And I know I'm oversimplifying those people's points. I know that they're like, yeah, no, obviously if you plateau because you're eating like 20 grams of protein a day, it doesn't necessarily mean it's because you're intermediate, but to not outright say that, I think there's a lot of true beginners on YouTube and I think that needs to be communicated. Thank you guys for watching my videos as always. If you have any other videos you would like me to do, please let me know. The part of making these videos that I struggle with isn't actually doing them. I don't mind coming in here and filming and giving you guys my opinion, because for a lot of these I don't really prepare. I just am letting you guys know what I think. Obviously I don't really need to prepare just my opinion. I'd have to prepare if I was going to present a bunch of facts, but just my opinion. I can do these really quick. I like filming my training, especially once we have a home gym and I'm not inconveniencing people with my camera at the gym. Love to do those. I just struggle to come up with guessing what people want to see. And I guess if I paid more attention to the analytics, that could help. But I really just want to make videos that people want to see, not just videos I want to make. I like to have a happy middle ground. So thank you guys as always. Let me know what you want to see.